Hey guys, you know what I've really started thinking about? All the things that changed from Classic to TBC. The game really changed in major ways. You've got flying mounts, an entirely new world with Outland, the removal of world buffs, much harder raids, arguably, and tons of other things. So that's what this video is all about, talking about all the things that changed from vanilla WoW to TBC WoW. One thing that I forgot personally about how it became easier to quest in the old world. Azeroth. Lots of quests that had elite mobs were made into non-elites, like the ogres of Stromguard or the trolls of Jintha'alor. It's a huge change because that crap was really hard, you'd have to get a group for those quests. You just couldn't solo it. And the rewards were awesome. Or even just getting the mallet for Zul'Aman. You'd have to go to Jintha'alor to create it, and you'd need a group for that. So there's going to be more people with the ZF mallet in TBC, that's for sure. But what else? In patch 2.3.0, the Gods of Zul'Aman Patch, the amount of experience needed to gain a level was decreased between levels 20 and 60. In addition, the amount of experience granted by quests has been increased between levels 30 and 60. So it's like a leveling squish, right? So it's going to be a lot easier. So not to mention that in addition to this experience squish and elite mob removal, which already makes leveling easier, a bunch of new quests were added to the game. As you wander around the world questing, you're going to notice that there's a bunch of blood elves if you're Horde, or draenei if you're Alliance, at some of your favorite questing hubs, where you had to grind just, otherwise because the quests weren't there. So, not to mention there's even brand new leveling hubs just like added to the game, like Mud Sprocket in Duskwallow Marsh. The game's a whole lot easier for that reason. And then, thinking more about, how Outland was added, moving away from Azeroth, flying mounts. You could fly in Azeroth. It's a huge change. In Outland. Being able to move at speeds unheard of, 280%. They move extremely fast, and they're extremely expensive. You're reaching thousands of gold in order to afford them. And if you haven't seen my gold making video, that's going to help you afford your flying mount. Outland's a smaller play area than Azeroth. It's going to feel more tight-knit. I feel like you're going to experience, a greater sense of community with, seeing both members of the Horde and Alliance in a neutral city, Shattrath. That's a huge change. And honestly, I think that Shattrath city, however you want to pronounce it, was one of the greatest things that was added to World of Warcraft because I think it was a perfectly designed city and just perfectly done. With the introduction of flying mounts, you have a city that is very open. You can just fly down, swoop down into it pretty much from any angle and get to where you're trying to go. It's a roofless city, not ruthless, but without a roof, no top to it. And just, pretty much centered in the middle of Outland. If you look at the map of Outland, it's almost in the heart of Outland. It's a little off-center, being a little bit southern, a little bit slightly southern in Tarokar Forest, but it's in the north of Tarokar Forest. And I just think TBC was just so well designed for that reason. So Outland's fantastic. I think the zones are all really well designed. You've got Hellfire Peninsula from levels 58 to 63. You've got Zangar Marsh from 60 to 64. Very smooth transition to go to Tarokar and Nagrand. From Nagrand you can go 64 to 67, or you can go Tarokar from 62 to 65. It's all very, very seamless. And then at 65 you can go to Blade's Edge, and then choose if you want to go to Netherstorm or Shadowmoon Valley from 67 to 70. It's just a very smooth leveling experience. It's a really great time, honestly. So that's I feel like a big change from Azeroth, where you're hopping literally all over the freaking world trying to figure out, which zone am I supposed to go to next. Obviously, if you're a veteran of the game, it's a little easier to know where to go, but it's still a lot of hopping around. So, Outland, I feel like, is an improvement in terms of game design for, how are quest hubs created, how do you transition from zone to zone. I really think that was dramatically improved in Outlands. So what's another change? So harder raids, I mentioned, you've got some infamous fights. You've got Muru, who is, I think many people argue like the hardest raid boss of the time of our time of the time. I don't know. I heard he was super hard, and then you got Illidan, where you have to bring a ton of consumables to even fight. Definitely, people say that vanilla raids were the hardest, with like pre nerf Cthulhu, but I think TBC is gonna surprise a lot of people how hard it is. I could be wrong, because definitely could be the case, but harder raids. And then my personal favorite, arenas. So arenas were added in the Burning Crusade and introduced a new way to get gear to compete against your fellow Azerothians and Outlandiers. Arenas are just so fun. They introduced whole new levels of skill with coming up with arena composition teams, utilizing line of sight, positioning, timing your abilities correctly to counterspell, to spell lock, to pummel, to kick, to feral charge appropriately at the right times. And this introduced, of course it was always there, but juking, very high levels of play, where because there was a ranking system, right? And this did exist in the honor system in vanilla classic WoW, but with arenas you were awarded gear, right? You had to have a certain arena rating in order to get certain gear. I guess it's very similar to the honor system, right? You did need to have a certain ranking to get certain gear, and you also were awarded titles. But so in many ways, it is quite similar to the honor system, the arena system. But it's more, you could really just grind battlegrounds forever, but and get your ranking, but that's more of like a time commitment. Whereas arenas, I think what really separated arenas from battlegrounds was that you needed a certain level of skill. You had to actually, achieve a certain rank through skill, through winning, because when you lost points, right? If you lose a battleground, you don't lose honor points. You might get less, but, I think, arenas really separated the boys from the men, so to speak. You really had to win a lot of games, and there was cutoffs. Not everyone could be a gladiator, and this introduced things like the gladiators mounts. You had to be a gladiator in order to get these mounts. They're super exclusive, and some of the ones I'm talking about are the armored nether drake, the that's actually pretty much it. Vanquishers, armored nether drake, things like that are gladiators. You could get nether drakes, but they wouldn't be armored. And this trend continued into Wrath of the Lich King. But, that's one example of like the exclusivity and a way to show off being the best in arena, one of the best. So that was introduced, and I think that changed Burning Crusade in a big way, or World of Warcraft in a very big way, because it made it even more competitive than it already was. So moving on, I think another big thing was that there's just more reputation grinds. Now, I'm not saying there aren't a lot already in classic vanilla WoW, but there's a lot more, especially with the introduction of having to choose. Now, in classic vanilla WoW, you did have the Kolkar and the Maghar to choose from in Desolus, but that decision was not. I would say that decision did not impact you as much. As the decision between Aldor and Scryer, because Aldor and Scryer is a reputation thing that really impacts what's going to happen at max level, whereas the Kolkar and the Maghar is a level 30 decision you make, which is not going to have consequences for levels to come, or for a while after, right? It's going to impact things for a while. So with that, there's even more besides Aldor and Scryer. There's also Cenarian Refuge, the Cenarian Expedition. They offer specialty mounts, which is a big one. A lot of the reputation grinds are going to reward you with mounts, epic flying mounts, like the hippogriff mount. It's an epic flying mount. There's I kind of mentioned this earlier, the nether drake. That is a reputation grind you can do. You can gather the eggs and start farming rep. That's a notoriously difficult grind, by the way. There's the Shattrath Skyguard. There's if you looked at my other video, how to make gold, I talk about the ogres at Ogre Allah. There's a ton of dailies for a ton of different potential factions to increase your reputation with. So reputations are a bigger deal in the Burning Crusade with more factions than I can even name that all give you really good rewards. There's an incentive to pretty much grind the reputation for each of those things. Now, something I particularly enjoyed is gathering lots of different mounts, and I'm sure a lot of you love gathering mounts. But one thing that is a downside of Burning Crusade is that achievements weren't added to the game yet, and this is probably controversial. I feel like achievements don't get a good reputation. I feel like people don't like it for whatever reason. Maybe it's too childish or whatever. But I feel like achievements were actually a really fun part of the game added in Wrath of the Lich King, not TBC. And actually, speaking of things that are in Wrath of the Lich King and not TBC, I feel like a lot of us are remembering differently because a lot of people think that Shadow Meld takes you out of combat, but it in fact does not. That was a change in Wrath of the Lich King. So I think people are going to be surprised because things are not as they remember exactly. A lot of people have been asking me, is every man for himself in the Burning Crusade? It's not. Humans do not have that racial. So there are definitely a number of things that may surprise you about the transition from Burning Crusade to from classic vanilla WoW to the Burning Crusade. All right, so another change from from vanilla classic WoW to Burning Crusade is tier sets that can be chosen according to your spec. So instead of the gear just dropping how it is, and we're seeing some of this now with AQ and Courage, the tier sets, you kind of share the item and then you turn it in to get the piece of gear that's specific to you. So if you look at some of the different pieces of gear that drop, you can then take that piece of gear and choose which item you want to turn that into according to whichever spec that you're looking to get. It's an awesome change. It's a welcome change, especially since you can't always get the gear that you want to drop, right? So instead you get a token that essentially allows you to access to more items if you just win that roll. So another awesome change, another quality of life improvement, frankly. And speaking of quality of life improvement, there's the looking for group / looking for more that was added in TBC. I'm sure, again, this is another thing that people probably didn't remember or realize, probably forgot when it was added. How did it work? Honestly, it's a little finicky in the Burning Crusade. It's not as helpful or easy to use as retail. I would say that it's kind of in its perfect state. When you're looking for group, you can see other people, or you can leave a note, things like that, and you can auto join. So like if someone sends you an invite, something like that. But looking for more, I feel like is super helpful because you can like filter for the dungeon you're doing, or the raid, or the quest, or the zone, or the heroic dungeon. And then you can filter for exactly which one, and you have certain options. And you can also leave a comment for like what you're looking for healer, looking for a tank, or some DPS. The system itself is it's pretty awesome. You definitely still have to talk to people and whisper people. It's as though, I mean, it does say auto join does exist, but this is a feature that only works for dungeons, right? So if you are looking for something else, whether that's a raid or a quest, that will not or zone is another option. You can't just auto join with that. So there's a lot of talking still required, but you know, it really helps finding a group, I feel like, and you still, again, like I'm saying, like you still have to reach out to people. So I think it's in its perfect state. I actually am a big fan of the looking for group / looking for more functionality that's added in TBC, and I think a lot of people forgot how cool it is. So I think you all are going to really enjoy it. Okay, so next, just looking at my notes here, Jewelcrafting. So a new profession was added, and if you are interested in learning more about professions, you can take a look at my profession guide. That's going to be linked below. And Jewelcrafting is a profession that I feel like has a lot of fun flavors and kind of just seamlessly integrates with the gathering profession of mining. So Jewelcrafting, you can make statues, rings, amulets, basically jewelry, right? Trinkets. So these statues, they're actually pretty helpful. You know, they give you quite a bit of healing, a lot of utility there. There's some best in slots even. I mean, you can get your like a pre-raid best in slot necklace, ring. Jewelcrafting is pretty fantastic. It's definitely gonna be a moneymaker as well. But anyways, I already kind of talked about Jewelcrafting in my other video, so I'm going to just kind of gloss over that and just say, you know, Jewelcrafting was added. It's a new profession. If you want to roll a jewel crafter, maybe consider creating a draenei, because they have the gem cutting racial passive 5 skill in that. Okay, so kind of the last big change that I'm going to talk about, which I'm sure a lot of you are already aware of, is the fact that the Horde get Paladins and the Alliance get Shamans. I feel like this is the big one, the one that people probably think about the most when they think of, you know, classic vanilla WoW to classic TBC, is the access to Shamans and Paladins for the opposite factions. So what does this really translate to? Well, I would just say like a lot of fun and you know, more powerful, more equal factions and raiding capabilities, as well as I guess PvP. In pretty much most ways, the two factions have become a little bit more equal. You know, the totems that Shamans provide, the bloodlust or inspiration for Alliance, is very helpful in raids. I guess it's going to cause a lot of demand for these classes in raids, more so that they've just become available. So I think a takeaway for you is, if you know you're looking at how to guarantee a raid spot, I would say if you're Horde, make a Paladin. I'm sure you'd get a raid spot as Holy, you know, main tank healer, or protection. Protection Paladins in the Burning Crusade are very much sought after. And then Alliance, if you make a Shaman, a draenei Shaman, you will absolutely also get a raid spot for that inspiration, the totems, and all of the utility that you bring. So that's just a kind of an overview of like a bunch of changes that the Burning Crusade brought. Kind of just off the top of my head, I wanted to do something a little bit different this time. You know, I've been frequently going off. You know, I've been writing down like word for word what I'm going to say to you guys, but this time I just wanted to kind of just have a more casual conversation about, you know, all the changes from TBC that happened in TBC. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. As always, guys, let me know if you liked it with a like, and if I missed any changes, I'm sure there's a bunch that I missed. Let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.